Greetings in Jesus' holy name. Welcome to Sunday School Bible Lessons by Zippo Auntie. In lesson 7, we are going to see about manna in the desert, the 10 laws of God, that is the 10 commandments, God's special tent, the tabernacle, rebellion, conclusion, memory verse, questions and answers, Bible craft and homework. The people of Israel had escaped from Egypt. They were no longer slaves. They were free. Moses and Aaron's sister Miriam took her tambourine and led the women as they danced and sang for joy. Sing to the Lord, because he has won a glorious victory. He has thrown the horses and their riders into the sea. But before long, they forgot their cruel slavery in Egypt. They forgot about the slave drivers with their savage whips. All they could think of was the food they had enjoyed in Egypt. The fish, those juicy melons, and the leeks and onions and cucumbers. What was there to eat in the desert? So they began to grumble. They turned against Moses and Aaron. It would have been better to die in Egypt, they said, than to starve to death in this desert. God heard these grumbles, and he spoke to Moses. Tell the people I will give them all they need. I have saved their lives. I will give them food. There will be meat tonight and a new kind of bread tomorrow. Every morning from now on, except on Fridays, when I will give you enough for 2 days, so that no one has to work on Saturday, my Sabbath day of rest. Moses told the people what God had said, and sure enough, that evening at dusk, a great flock of birds called quails settled to rest around the tent. So the people had their meat. Next morning, when the sun dried the dew, there on the ground all around the camp was a special bread God had promised. It lay there like frost, and the people gathered it quickly before the hot sun melted it. They called it manna. It tasted very good, like biscuits made with honey. All the time they were in the desert, God gave the people manna to eat day by day. They never had to go hungry. But there were other troubles. The hot sun burned down, and there was very little water in the desert. So the people began to grumble again. Give us water, Moses. Did you bring us here to die of thirst? Again Moses cried to God for help. Command that rock over there to give you its water, God said. You will have enough water for everyone to drink as much as they want. Moses struck the rock and water poured out. The people were wrong to put God to the test, but he did not fail them. For 40 years, God looked after his people in the desert. He kept every one of his promises to them. Day by day, he fed them and gave them water to teach them to depend on him and to trust him. The 10 laws of God. Moses led the people of Israel from the borders of Egypt through the desert to Mount Sinai, where God had told him to bring them. God himself went ahead of them to show them the way. The people knew he was there because out in front of all day was a column of cloud, and at night a column of fire. When they reached Sinai, they set up camp at the foot of the mountain. God spoke to the people through Moses. I have brought you safely out of Egypt. I want you to be my own special people. Will you obey me? With one voice, the people answered yes. Then they set to work, washing their clothes and cleaning the camp to get ready for a meeting with God. The day after tomorrow, God said, I will come down on Mount Sinai where everyone can see me. On the third morning, there was thunder and lightning and thick cloud on the mountain. The people trembled. They knew that God was near. Moses and Aaron went up into the mountain alone, and God gave them the 10 great laws his people must keep. I am God, he said. You are to honor and serve me and me alone. Don't make idols or bow down to them. Treat my name with respect. Keep my day of rest, the seventh day. Show respect to your father and mother. Don't kill another human being. Husbands and wives, be loyal to one another. Don't go off with another woman or another man. Don't steal. Don't tell lies. Don't be greedy for the things that other people have. These are the 10 commandments of God. God explained to Moses how these laws applied in all sorts of different situations. And Moses explained to the people. The people all agreed to obey God's laws. God said he would write them on stone tablets for the people to keep. And Moses went up into the mountain to receive them. But this time he was away so long that the people grew angry and impatient. We don't know what has happened to Moses. Who led us out of Egypt, they said to Aaron. So make us a new god to lead us. Aaron asked the people to give him their gold earrings. Then he melted them down and made a gold bull, like one of the gods of Egypt. He built an altar and held a feast, and the people said, "This is our God that brought us out of Egypt." And they made a great noise, singing and dancing. When God saw how quickly his people had broken their word and turned to other gods, he was angry. And when Moses went down the mountain and saw what the people were doing, he was angry too. He threw down the stone tablets of the law, and they broke into pieces. And he ground the gold bull to powder. "You have done a terrible thing," he said. But Moses still loved the people, and he asked God to forgive them and let them have a second chance. So God wrote out his laws again. This time when Moses returned, there was no gold bull and no feasting. The people listened to Moses as he taught them the law of God. The agreement, the covenant, was sealed at last between God and his people. God gave Moses a great many laws for his people at Sinai. Laws about right and wrong, laws for health, laws about punishment. He told his people how to behave, how to treat one another, and how to honor and serve him. God is good. He takes a delight in all that is right and just and true. He hates to see evil and wrong. In those days, there was a great deal wrong with the religion of the nations who lived in the lands close to the Israelites. They worshipped many gods. Their feasts were an excuse to get drunk for days. They treated their women badly. They practiced magic. They even killed their own children and offered them up to idols. God hated all these things. "Those nations have disgusted me with all their evil practices," he said. "You must not follow their customs. You are to be holy, to belong only to me." So God told Moses the kinds of feasts and sacrifices and worship he wanted. And Moses explained to the people, "I have promised to be with you always," God said. "So build me a special tent, the tabernacle, like one of your own. Make it of goat skin and line it with fine linen, scarlet, purple and blue, and embroidered with figures of winged beasts. Make a courtyard round the tent for the sacrifices, and divide the inside of the tent with curtains to make 2 rooms. No one but the priest may enter the first room. I want you to make a golden altar, a table and a lampstand, holding 7 lamps for this part of my tent. The inner room is to be set apart for me. Just once a year, on the Day of Atonement, the high priest may come in to make peace for the sins of the people. I want you to make a box of acacia wood, the Ark of the Covenant, covered with gold for my special room, to hold the tablets on which my laws are written. Make a lid of pure gold and 2 beads of gold with wings outspread to cover it. This is where I will meet with you." The people did all that God said. They gladly gave their gold and jewels, silver and bronze, linen and animal skins for the tent of God. They brought oil for the lamps and spices to burn as incense, scenting the air. And their best craftsmen set to work spinning and weaving and dyeing, smoothing and polishing and engraving precious stones, beating and shaping the gold and silver. So God's tent was made to his design, and it was very beautiful. When it was finished, a cloud covered the tent, and the glory of God filled it. This was God's sign that he had come to be with his people. God chose Aaron as the first high priest to be in charge of all the feasts and sacrifices. His sons served as priests, and the Levites, the family descended from Jacob's son Levi, helped them. Moses explained to the people that although God was with them and wanted them to come to him as friends, they could not come just as they were. God is absolutely good. Nothing, no one that is wrong or spoiled by sin can live in his presence. Every single human being falls short of God's perfect goodness. Sin builds a barrier between us and God. The penalty for sin, for breaking God's law, is death. But because God loved his people, he accepted the death of a lamb or a kid instead of the death of the man or a woman who had done wrong. So he made it possible for his people to pay the penalty of sin and come to him as his friends. Aaron and the priests and the Levites were put in charge of the sacrifices, the sin offerings, the guilt offerings, and the peace offerings. Once a year, on the Day of Atonement, Aaron offered up special sacrifices for the sins of the whole nation, to put himself and the people right with God. God also commanded his people to keep each Saturday, the seventh day of the week, as a day of rest, the Sabbath. God made the world in 6 days and rested on the seventh. His people must stop work too and keep the seventh day of the week as a day for rest and for remembering God's goodness. When Mount Sinai, where God gave them his laws, the Israelites moved through the desert to the borders of Canaan, the land God had promised to give them. At Kadesh, they chose one man from each of the 12 tribes, the descendants of Jacob's 12 sons, and sent them to spy out the land. It was the time of year when the first grapes are ripe. After 40 days, the men returned, 2 of them carrying a huge cluster of grapes. Canaan is a good land, they said. Just look at the grapes and figs and pomegranates we have brought back with us. But the cities are strong, and there are men as big as giants. If we go in, they will crush us like grasshoppers. The people were in despair when they heard this. Why did we leave Egypt? They cried. We must go back. But Joshua and Caleb, 2 of the spies, spoke up. Don't let the others frighten you, they said. Canaan is a good land, and you're forgetting God. If he goes with us, we have nothing to fear. He will give us the land. Don't turn against him now. But the people refused to listen. Then God said to them, when will you learn to trust me? How quickly you forget all that I have done to you. Now because you have refused to trust me, you will wander in the desert for 40 years, until everyone who saw my wonders in Egypt is dead, all except Joshua and Caleb. They will live to go in and possess the land because they trusted in me. The people were sad at heart when they heard this, yet some still refused to take God at his word. They went out to fight the Canaanites against God's orders, and they were beaten. Time passed, and the people grew weary of life in the desert. They grumbled about their leaders and turned against them. There was open rebellion in the camp. What right have Moses and Aaron to lord it over us, they said. Then Moses answered, let God decide who is to lead his people. Every tribe must choose a leader and write his name on an almond branch. Aaron will be the leader for his own tribe, the Levites. Tonight we will put the 12 almond branches in God's tent. The man whose branch comes into flower will be God's chosen leader. They did as Moses said, and next morning there were buds and flowers and ripe almonds too on Aaron's branch, but the others were bare. So the rebels had to be quiet. After some years, Aaron died, and the grumbling began again. Why did we leave Egypt? There's no food or water here. We are tired of eating manna day after day. This time God punished the rebels. Poisonous snakes came into the camp and many people died. Then the rest came to their senses. Moses, they said, it was very wrong of us to speak against God. Ask him to take the snakes away. So Moses prayed and God said, make a bronze snake and fasten it to a pole for everyone to see. Those who are bitten need only look at the bronze snake and they will live. So everyone who believed God and did as he said was made well again. Now we come to the conclusion. God fed his people. When Israel people didn't have food to eat, God gave his food from heaven. It was called manna. Also, when they asked for meat and water, God gave them miraculously. How good God is, isn't it? He will never forsake his people. Also, for us, God will never leave us hungry. He will provide the necessary things on time when we pray to him. 10 Commandments. God gave these 10 commandments to his people to follow these rules and live a righteous life. But now, God has given us the Bible. We have to follow the rules and what has been said in it. We should live according to the words of God. We should obey to God's words. Attending Sunday church or worship. God told Moses and Israel people to build the tabernacle to give sacrifice to him. It's a kind of worship. Likewise, at present, God has told us to go to church every Sunday to worship him. We should not forget to go to church and worship him because we are his children. We should obey to his words. Do not rebel against God. We should not rebel or talk back to God against God. Like Israel people did, they did not listen to God. We should always listen to God's words and obey to him always. Memory verse. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. Matthew chapter 22 verses 37 to 39. Questions and answers. What was the name of the heavenly food? What was the first commandment of God? Why did God say to build the tabernacle? Who was the 2 men who said good about Canaan? Why did Israel people rebel against God? Bible craft and homework. Take a piece of paper, A4 sheet paper, and 2 papers and then paste it on top of it. First of all, draw 10 boxes on it, and then you have to draw all the 10 commandments. You can write it or draw it, and then cut it, and like boxes you can open and you can do it as shown in the picture. Also you can paint your hands, palms, and you can paste it in the paper, A4 sheet paper, and then around each and every fingers you can paste all these 10 commandments, and then you can memorize it, and then you will be able to remember. Hope you will enjoy this craft. Now we come to the end of lesson 6. See you all in next lessons. Until then, bye. Take care. God bless you.